Writing. The rain had started before dawn, a slow drizzle that darkened the highway and wrapped the countryside in a gray mist. By noon, it had turned into a relentless downpour, pounding the asphalt with enough force to blur the yellow lane markings. Every truck driver on Interstate 80 knew days like this demanded patience. One wrong move on slick pavement could end a career, or a life. Jack Turner tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his 18-wheeler as the windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the rain. At 53 years old, he had spent more than 3 decades driving freight across America. He had seen snowstorms in Wyoming, hurricanes along the Gulf Coast, and dust storms that swallowed entire highways in Arizona. But what he had never grown used to was the loneliness. The cab was quiet except for the hum of the engine and an old country song playing softly through the radio. A framed picture rested on the dashboard, a smiling woman with warm brown eyes and a little girl missing her front teeth. His wife, Emily, had passed away 6 years earlier after a battle with cancer. His daughter, Sophie, now lived 3 states away with her own family. Jack rarely complained about being alone, but the empty passenger seat reminded him every mile of what he had lost. He checked the digital clock. Another 3 hours until the next delivery. As he rounded a gentle curve, something unusual caught his eye through the curtain of rain. At first, he thought it was debris on the shoulder. Then he realized they were people. A man, a woman, and 2 small children were walking along the side of the highway. The father carried a soaked backpack over one shoulder while holding the hand of a little boy no older than 6. The mother struggled to shield a toddler wrapped in a thin blanket. None of them had umbrellas. Their clothes clung to their bodies, and every passing vehicle sprayed them with dirty water. Jack frowned. People didn't walk on highways unless something had gone terribly wrong. He eased off the accelerator, glancing into his mirrors. Cars rushed past without slowing. A pickup truck blasted through a puddle, soaking the family even more. The little boy stumbled. His father caught him before he hit the ground. Jack's foot hovered over the brake pedal. He had a schedule. His dispatcher hated delays. Stopping for strangers could be risky. Yet something inside him refused to let the image go. He remembered another rainy day years ago when Emily and Sophie had been stranded after their car broke down. A stranger had stopped to help them. Emily used to say that kindness was like a chain, one good deed inspired another. Jack sighed. "Guess it's my turn," he muttered. He flipped on his hazard lights and carefully pulled the massive truck onto the shoulder several yards ahead of the family. The air brakes hissed loudly as the truck came to a stop. Inside the cab, Jack grabbed his rain jacket before climbing down into the storm. The rain hit his face like tiny needles. The family froze when they saw the tall truck driver walking toward them. The father instinctively stepped in front of his wife and children. "We're okay," he called cautiously. Jack raised his hands. "I'm not here to cause trouble." He looked at the children shivering uncontrollably. "You folks need help." For a moment, nobody spoke. Finally, the woman whispered, "Please." Her voice cracked. The father lowered his eyes. "Our car broke down 20 miles back. We couldn't afford a tow truck. My phone died. We've been walking for hours hoping we'd find a town." Jack looked up and down the endless highway. The nearest town's another 12 miles. The father's face fell. Jack shook his head. "You'll never make it with these little ones." The man hesitated. "We don't want to be a burden." Jack smiled gently. "My mama taught me something a long time ago." He glanced toward his truck. "She said if you've got room, you've got responsibility." For the first time all day, the little boy smiled. Jack opened the passenger side door. "Come on. Let's get you out of this rain." The children climbed into the warm cab with wide eyes. The heater blasted comforting warmth almost immediately. The little girl held her tiny hands near the vent. It feels like sunshine, she whispered. Jack felt something tighten in his chest. He handed the family several clean towels he kept behind the seats. Dry off. The father introduced himself. I'm Daniel. My wife is Maria. These are Noah and Lily. Jack nodded. I'm Jack. As the truck rolled back onto the highway, silence filled the cab for several minutes. Then Noah noticed the photograph on the dashboard. Is that your family? Jack smiled softly. It is. They're beautiful. Jack answered quietly. Daniel glanced over. I'm sorry. Jack simply nodded. Sometimes there were no words big enough for loss. A few miles later, they reached a truck stop. Jack parked beside the restaurant. Nobody argues with me, he announced. We're getting hot food. Daniel immediately shook his head. We don't have any money. Jack grinned. I wasn't asking. Inside the diner, the smell of fresh coffee and homemade soup filled the air. The children stared at the menu as though it were treasure. Jack ordered pancakes for the kids, grilled cheese sandwiches, soup, coffee, and warm pie. Lily giggled after her first bite. I forgot food could taste this good. Maria quietly wiped away tears. Jack pretended not to notice. Sometimes dignity meant allowing people to cry without asking why. During lunch, Daniel finally told their story. He had worked at a small factory for 11 years until it closed unexpectedly. They had spent months searching for work. Every dollar disappeared into rent, groceries, and medical bills. Eventually they lost their apartment. An old friend offered Daniel a construction job in another city. Everything they owned fit inside their aging sedan. But halfway there, the engine failed. The repair estimate was more than they possessed. They had no choice but to start walking. Jack listened without interrupting. When Daniel finished, Jack stared out the rain-covered window. Life could change so quickly. One diagnosis. One lost job. One broken engine. Nobody was immune. After lunch, Jack excused himself for a moment. He stepped outside and made 2 phone calls. The first was to his dispatcher. The second changed everything.